Welcome in. Imagine that. I'm in the middle of playing turn 58 or just finishing up my scripting. I already recorded the turn and I was just having a good time and thought maybe, I don't know, there's been a lot of things I've been doing in the background that I haven't really talked about because, I'm trying to get through these long turns and keep it snappy and I would love to just play through the turn and talk out my strategy as I'm developing it, but the turns would just take forever, I think. And that would be frustrating. But we haven't looked at our armory, I don't think ever, and like our income and all the troops that we have and stuff. We looked at some graphs, but those don't tell a comparison story. But you know, I really wish Illinter would put in some indicators of what turn is it, and how many provinces, how many forts. Like we can count the forts, but other things we're not going to be able to count that, right? Uh, income. It'd be great to have figures for each of these. Would help tell a better story. But like we do look, I mean, our income is pretty insane, right? And apparently, people in Discord at one point were talking about Dream Atlas or however the map was set up. Like it's not counting river income. So anywhere where there's obviously a river here, usually it says, right, and it actually provides extra income when your province is there. And so even so, we have great income. It's not quite turned 60, but it's definitely a late game. And double our upkeep in terms of income at this point because we've really got big after taking a lot of Femini lands, right? And we were already probably, we were bigger than basically everyone. I don't know if Ulm was the biggest. It'll be interesting to see when we get all the graphs, but it seemed like they were our competitor for size alone, right? And we really jumped up after the Femini War when we were ahead, but pretty close. So we have great income, and what have we used all that income on? Well, we now have 12 Windmasters, so we had a slow ramp up, but now we can get to a turn, so that's kind of making up for it. Uh, what else of note here? 10 regular scouts and 33 of our bird knight or bird scouts, right? So 43 scouts total. We should have more. I always build too few scouts, I think. Uh, but when you have such mobile ones, that does help get them wherever you want. But they do cost more in upkeep because it's not just this number. They count the warbirds as well separately. But it's hard to, I guess we could figure it out based on how many bird knights we have, which I'm recruiting a lot more this turn actually. I think we need more now that we can buff them appropriately, and instead of just throwing our great eagles away, right? In the same situations we would want flying units. And yeah, in terms of commanders, we have 12 Prester Kings, so we waited a long time before we started recruiting them. And they're slow to recruit, right? But we've got a good number at this point, and they are our best commanders morale wise. And even if they get tired casting spells, like they're good units to have at this point in the game. And how many popes have survived to this point? Only 18. So I'd be interested to know how many we've lost total. But they are cap only, and they share space with the Prester King, so it feels pretty good. They're just they cast Divine Blessing and then they smite things, right? And then we have 120 combat, what I would call combat mages, right? Our sages, or sorry, these are our research ones, the dinky ones. We have a lot more actually combat mages, 194, almost 200 sage priests, and we've lost a few during Murdering Winter and that big fight with Atlantis, right? But we've kept a hold of most of them, I would say. It'd be interesting to know, like, if we compare how many have died, right? If we had another ledger item, it could be interesting to look at that kind of thing. And then, yeah, we've been recruiting these vine ogres for quite a while at this point and haven't lost that many. So having 100 just discourages Murdering Winter, right? It soaks up evocations. They're not as weak sauce against area of effect things, right? Even if they're not great combatants themselves. And these are actually mercenaries, 5 fire drakes. We'll see if we can get them killed. We've lost, I feel like, a fair amount of Great Eagles, but we still have 74, and I'm probably going to stop summoning them at this point, right? We'll use our air gems on other things. That's going to be plenty to crack the last few forts we need. And we do have the pale ones as well, which are relatively cheap in upkeep for how much of a benefit we're getting from them. The green lions I've been summoning 12 mage turrets, which, we have as much research as we want at this point. That's not a big deal, but I don't know if we're even going to be able to use them. uh, we'll see. We'll see. And then, yeah, for regular troops, we have tuner crossbowmen, and we haven't really utilized crossbows that well. The one time we really tried to buff them, we kind of missed. And now that we have the battlefield wide buffs, like they could be good against Dromon's armies, but we don't really need them. They're just kind of there, like to soak up counter. They'll counter battery because Dromon is using archers, right? And then yeah, we have 500 defenders, and four almost as many sacreds, 450. So we've been recruiting 25 a turn for quite a while. And we've lost some, but that's a ton of sacreds to have in the game and discourage people from, attacking you with their sacreds, and just having a air shielded magic weapon user, it's pretty good. Uh, and yeah, we have one King of the Lost Tribe, which I'm actually going to spend some more nature gems after all, and cast Gift of Reason on him with our heirloom here, because if we look, he still has a bunch of afflictions, but he healed the mute or whatever would reduce his magic pad, so he has weakened, chest wound, limp, and never healing wound still. But there's no other wounded units in this province, and she can heal up to 3 a turn. Where's the healer thing? Did it get bumped off because she has so many stats up? It looks like it. But I think she's a healer 3, and so if we get rid of the limp, the chest wound, and then every heal, we'll probably want 2 turns, but still, we'll have another giant chassis there we can put gear on, and I believe it's a fire mage. And yeah, so going back to the ledger, we could look at all our income or provinces. We just have a ton at this point. I haven't counted in a long time. And then yeah, our armory. So this is a great screen. You can filter it right by element type and whatnot. Although I guess I don't know the hotkey to clear the filter. There you go. Okay. And or maybe it's better to look at what we have in storage. Okay. So I do like that you can organize this relatively easily. Like there's an auto sort key, and then anything you put in the bottom row won't be auto sorted, right? So if we move this, we can get it back, and these stick. We've got multiple smashers in case Arcocephali wants to come against us, right? That are good against inanimate objects. We've got moonblades ready for golems if we need to deal with Ryujins or our other units, right? Combatants. And we've got a couple Mirrors of Long Last battles left. Virtue will probably want a different shield than the Lucky Coin, but it seems pretty good for her. It doesn't have a great parry, or even protection compared to other magic shields, right? But it has no encumbrance if we wanted to cast spells. And we have a couple armor slots here, and the Iron Face, less good against Ryujins, but pretty solid. We've got a bunch of elemental rings ready for resistances between cold resist, shock resist. I think I was gonna get the Burning Pearl out at some point to a golem, but it hasn't been necessary. We've been getting Skullfires and Fires in a Jar for our fire mages, right? One a turn at least. We have the Water Breathing Ring if we need it. Again, Amon's anti-magic we might want to put on golems if we face Arcus or another nation that does more MR spells, right? And in case we needed supplies, I got some endless bags there. We have 1 ring of regen left, and of course the great units or great items that Famini gifted us, right? The Horror Harmonica is going to let us get a throne, if not answer other problems we might run into, and the missing tune's just a bonus on top. And so, speaking of that, like, I'll probably wait to talk about it in the next episode, right? The next turn, but I think we're gonna go after both thrones on one turn. Because if we go after one at a time, people are gonna know, right? Even if I thought about mind hunting all the scouts, but if we do that, like someone's gonna assume we take it, even if they don't have eyes on it, right? And then we'd have to any units we wanted to use over here, such as Virtue, right? We'd have to move them to a lab or build a lab and then magic phase over. And this might not even be close enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, she needs to be within 5 provinces. So if we can hit both at the same time, then we'll surprise people a lot more, and that'll be our game-winning move, right? uh, to send like Virtue one golem here, and then a couple golems here with the horror harmonica. I think a couple golems can take it. I'll just put a bunch of uh, you know, shock resist on, and they'll rout eventually. I think, and they'll slowly kill the birds there if we get fire shield and whatnot, which we can craft. And yeah, otherwise, I mean, we built relatively early on 6 dwarven hammers, and every single turn since I've found 6 items to craft, right? Even if it was just lightless lanterns, right? We got our big boost the first turn, we researched them. And then if I didn't have anything else pressing to make, I would make extras, which feels like you kind of want to be able to respond quickly. Like we could fully gear a golem at discount with 6 dwarven hammers, essentially, right? Um, and yeah, not we're not using every item to its potential. So, but you're always gonna throw some gems away on something. And it's better to be responsive, and then like if we don't need the smashers the rest of the game, they still did their job. We had them ready to go if we needed them, right? Um, and the same can go for any counter you build. Like if it works even just once, then it's done its job, and you'll have it in reserve. Um, and probably would have made more Eyes of the Void uh, to go with our at least our 3 rune smashers. But there are a lot of astral nations in the game, and even Jomon has a lot of astral mages. So Mind Hunt is we have to be very particular about when we cast it, right? Um, and we only have 4 golems now, but we have the extra Moonblade, and I'm sure I'll build at least one more golem. We have enough astral income, so we have plenty of the mirrors here for them. We're gonna build one more elemental armor, right? I think this turn, right? Yeah. So this, I love this screen for you can easily check and even go in there and remove items and change their what they're gonna craft this turn and whatnot. So if you don't utilize this screen, it's one of the ones I use the most once you get into mid and late game. You can see where all your items are, and then just select the mages directly is very, very helpful. Even see where they are, which you can click on, I think. No, that'd be perfect. If Ilwinter added that, we could just go to Namor. But it gives you the number, and you can type it in, right? If you're getting lost. Um, Again, we have enough Frost Brands, I think. And, oh, we do already have, okay, we have 1 Trickle Shield. I'll probably want another one to take on the Springhawk province, but this setup right here, uh, if we put, we'll need one to have the horror harmonica, right? And we'll want them to have good shock resist too. So we might take off the chains of reconstruction, right? Because we'll need a miscellaneous slot. If we just put the Ring of Tape Lighting on, right? Give him the horror harmonica. What does he look like? He's got 20 shock resist with the iron face. So that's plenty. He's got 40 fire resist, right? Basically immune. Cold resist, those it's not gonna apply in the throne battle at all. Poison resist plenty, right? You'll have fire shield and a fire AoE attack. So we could equally give him a frostbrand, right? It'd be fine for that battle. Doesn't really matter. So we wouldn't have reconstruction, but 30 protection and basically immunity to um those birds, right? Why do I keep forgetting what they're called? Springhawks. Because 6, like, they're not going to exploding dice high enough, often enough to go against 20 shock resist. We saw they kind of did chip damage to the DV of strength at 15, and they damaged at 10 a ton, right? Because there's just so many. But with 20, we'll be fine. We'll be totally fine. So sending that in, um, wherever that golem was, right? I'm not sure where he was stationed, but right. If we send 2 equipped like this and give the other one the magic tune, put everything to sleep, like, no problem, they can take it. And so then we'll send Virtue in over here, and there's even less Springhawks. She's gonna have to deal with that Doomglaive, right? So yeah, let's take a look at her. Okay, and let's see what buff she casts. Because that's the only scary unit left. I mean, because Virtue's not going to care about this stuff, right? Okay, so Mist Form doesn't matter. Okay, so she casts nothing of that we're afraid of at all. It's just dealing with the Doomglaive, and she has some regen. She only has 15 protection, only 15 defense. And with attack 18, she does have Spirit Sight, so she's not going to care about displacement, so we might want to give Virtue different armor. But at 41, if we can get Virtue to... we'll want over 20 protection, I think. With the good shield. The Springhawks are going to harass her down because they have 50 morale, even if they don't damage her. So she'll be completely surrounded and harassed, I think. Although there's not going to be many Springhawks left by the time the Ananuki gets in there, right? If we can kill them with Fire Shield or whatnot, or AoE attacks. I think there was 20 something left. And then these guys, they're not going to harass Richard down. Well, they will. 15 morale's enough. But at like half the rate. Against awe, I'm thinking, right? But with displacement, like, they won't hit her in all likelihood. 41 damage. Yeah. Displacement seems good. Aw's good. I don't think she'll be harassed down to 0 kind of thing and get hit every turn is kind of what I'm getting at in the end. 18 attack is enough to hit her though, so. And if we target her right away with our Virtue, we'd cut her down pretty fast, but we're going to be surrounded, so who knows who she'll hit. So she's got to survive for a while, I think, against that. And I should know the hotkey for finding your pretender. And right now she's not fully geared up, right? But we know she's going to have these wormskin boots. We could also give her an iron helmet or iron face, right? That would probably do it right there. Some vulnerability, sure, but then her protection is just 26 flat, and she still has plenty of shock resist. So, yeah, the Doomglaive's still going to hit her pretty hard. And right now she only has 18 defense, but she has no weapons. And most weapons, you know, do give defense skill. So with the shield, she's up to 21. And a good weapon, maybe bump her up to 23, 25. But the item we're crafting her this turn is going to give her 4 defense. So we get it over 25 with displacement. Yeah, it's going to feel pretty good, I think, against that. Nothing else will hit her except the Doomglaive, and she'll have 20% regen, right? I'm moving David Watts, our prophet, wherever he is. He can only make it to high mill. I don't know why he was here. I think I misclicked him at some point because he was supposed to be preaching here, but then I wanted to redirect him, right? But he's coming up, so 2 turns he'll start preaching. Hopefully get some Dominion in before we strike. And Yeah, I think Richard can take it, and we'll give her a column for backup. A couple columns here. Feels pretty good. Uh, and so hopefully I'll talk about that more concisely in the next episode, right? But it's fun to talk through the actual strategy. We don't have quite enough Starshine Skull Caps. It's been a really good item for us because it's allowed us to cast Mind Hunt, right? And casting Mind Hunt in general is like a risky move if they have any potential for Astral Mages, but because we have a healer, like, if they do go feeble minded, she can heal that, and we just have to give our regular Sage Priest a couple boosters. Like, it's not actually a big risk, but to make it effective, you do need kind of the full setup here of penetration items. Um, Also, just targeting mundane commanders, right? So it's a lot of gem investment, but we can move it around anytime we want, except for the eye. uh, but we also need them for golems to magic phase. If we want 4 golems at least and 4 mind hunters, I am building one more this turn. Eight might be enough to see us through. Could we find another use for those death gems? We have enough to empower again, which I've thought about doing. Uh, right, I'm Bruce here. But the Skull of Fire is a decent low cost item for him to make. And if we boosted him up to 2 death, it would take all our death gems. We're getting 11 a turn, and then what would we make with 2 death, right? Skull Staff, sure, okay, but then what, right? We get him to 3 death, and we're just not gonna have enough gems and turns to probably make that worth it. Items wise, maybe there's a good artifact that I haven't looked at. Um, the Fear Shield, I don't think we need, but it is a good item. Same with the Horror Helmet. Um, but that's kind of it, I think. I would love the Bone Armor, but we're not getting up to 4 and, building that. But Soul Vortex is very good. Yeah, so we'll probably just make these and we'll transmute those gems. If we somehow enslaved a Ryujin, we could gift a reason, but otherwise we'll probably transmute these as well or alchemize them, right? Uh, and then we have a use for our fire gems, getting Elemental King of Fire, and definitely for the earth gems we want. Even if we don't demolish this palisade and put up the wizard's tower, right? We want to be ready to do it definitely on Valquez, because that's the one that's in most danger, right? We have this one surrounded essentially. I mean, Femini again is just, they've been kind of unfortunately passive. They could have been a much like tougher out for us. We kind of got to escape them because they've just been so small. Yeah, and then as far as research, like, I think it would have been fun to talk about research in more detail earlier, about what we're going for and what our opponents might cast against us, right? Why we're getting certain things to counter other things. But now that we have so much of it, uh, it's been unfortunate we haven't been able to have like a really big communion battle. Like if we were fighting Ulm, they like to have big armies clash, and we could have done a big communion. That could have been fun. But to prevent Murdering Winter and Ryujins, like it makes more sense to have these smaller armies. They could still communion up and cast big spells, but so far I haven't made them that way because I'm just trying to avoid Dromon's armies at this point, and a big communion against Ryujins probably wouldn't work in our favor regardless. uh, like, yeah, if we look at this army, we've got some defenders up front, some crossbows. They're just kind of there, right? They're not really going to do anything against Ryujins with nothing, right? Against a good army of Jomons. Uh, but against PD or raiding forces, sure, like we'll clean up. And then the Baculates on the sides, right? To catch any flankers. We have seen some cavalry from Jomon on the scouting report. They'll have air shield, of course, right? And the Fine Ogres, just kind of like to save them until I know I need them, so they're in the back. They would counter flying attacks potentially and just, act as the last blocker. And then, yeah, mage wise, like we should cast Fire Fend, although they haven't cast it. I'm not sure why. We cast Phoenix Power, gets us up to 4 fire, and then it takes 1 gem, and we have, the temporary gem. I actually gave him an extra one to see if he casts it. Like, I'm not sure why they're not casting it. Even in PD battles, like you think they would. Um, they must know that there's nothing capable of fire damage, which is interesting. So probably don't need the gem there, but I want to see them cast it before I commit. And yeah, we have a couple mind burners, right? How many mages do we have total? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, not including our Prester King, right? So that's plenty to go into communion. We could have 8 slaves to get a +3 path bonus and 5 masters, which would burn out pretty fast, but we could do 10 slaves, 3 good masters, right? 4, I'd probably do the Prester King as a master, advance and cast. We want to do advance and cast more in case they do have their mages in the back. Well, maybe we'd have a chance against Ryujins. Who knows? And I want to commit my Wind Masters to armies more and get shock resist up and things like that. I am recruiting more Bird Knights to get. I mean, the Wind Masters can lead them. It's not with a good morale bonus, but at least to meet up with Bird Knight commanders, and then we can have mage support with our Air Force, right? Which is pretty fun, and it would have been cool to use it a little earlier. I've been busy site searching with them, right? Which just worked out, because we were very low income for a while, and at this point we found +3 or +4 per turn, so we'll leave it there, stop site searching. Right, I guess I have him moving to site search one more, but probably shouldn't. I'm just gonna commit them to the front. And we are really loading up our Jomon front. Just banking on Alm and Arcocephali continuing to go at it, which feels like the right move. They basically are 0 threat to us at the moment. Just absolutely none. And that's another reason I want to avoid taking one of these thrones, because they probably already know we're sieging Jomon here. They'll probably know before too long, once we attack Atlantis. So once we attack these two, they'll be very nervous, but they might not come at us right away still. And then just the following turn, we could be set up to take these two and win the game, right? And now that Intermania's Pretender's gone, that was kind of my last concern with Magic Phase here. Like, because that was a scary Pretender, and we can probably hold off Ryujins that would try to counter us on the last turn, right? But we'd cast the Wizard's Tower regardless. So yeah, feeling pretty good at turn 58. It's been a really fun game. It'd be nice to close it out, but we could get surprised or push back or just fail in our pushes and have to play the longer game, and we'd pivot from there, right? Because even if we fail in a Throne Rush, we're still probably the biggest player, right? If we count in provinces, and yeah, we don't have globals up, but we're banking on winning before those would pay off, or before they can leverage their advantages against us. So, okay, I think that's it for this little extra episode, and I hope you guys finish the rest of the series with me. If you come to this point, I assume you will, right? So thank you, and I'll see you on the other side. Imagine that.